Hey, you beautiful buccaneers.
Hey.
Falcore here.
Hey, wait, what? What are you doing?
Sorry.
You doing this here as well? Didn't John tell you to get back in your cage?
Sorry.
I'll bloody...
No! Leave me be!
Hey, you beautiful buccaneers, Falcore here. So this game is slowly approaching its 5-year anniversary, and a lot has changed in the game since its initial release. Some great things, some terrible things. So here's my best and worst of game updates since the game released, in no specific order, but I thought I'd do it because it's cool. Thing. So it goes without saying, one of the best updates this game has ever had, that is yet to be beaten in my opinion, is the very first anniversary update. This update brought so many features that all of our face skin fell off when it was first announced. A huge set of 9 tall tales spanning over nearly 45 hours of gameplay, and around 900,000 hours if you wanted the gold curse. A new faction known as the Hunter's Call, which added both small and large animal hunting, fishing, and also increased the food variety from bananas to all sorts of different things. It added a harpoons, which I cannot remember a time without, an arena mode that, yes, fell flat on its face shortly after it left the gate, but it was still an immense amount of fun when it was around, and a whole host of other things within its package that really breathed new life into the game for everyone. That said though, with all these new features came a whole new thesaurus of bugs. Speaking of bugs, my next favorite update to Sea of Thieves was Shrouded Spoils. This honestly was more of a quality of life update, but one of the best. It added roaming skeleton ships, including the new skeleton sloop. It added a variety of roaming megalodons, added new changes to the Kraken, and also made all of these encounters drop loot, including the mermaid statues. It's hard to imagine that before this update, megalodons, krakens, and mermaid statues gifted you no loot for defeating them. But yes, before this update, that was indeed the case. It also added my favorite item in the game, the barrel of content, the stronghold barrel, and a new emergent weather effect, fog. But on top of all of this update had some changes to weapon and naval combat that made it one of the most stable updates this game has ever had. In terms of stability, this was the pinnacle of Sea of Thieves. It's just a shame it all went downhill after this. But before this update, we had Cursed Sails, which added a new skeleton fleet encounter, and of course the Cursed Cannonballs. Not only was the skeleton ship encounter one of the best world events, and still to this day in my opinion, this update also kept people playing throughout its duration with escalated battles in different regions that could be fought for in-game cosmetics. But on top of that, not long after this was released, it was followed by the Forsaken Shores. This update speaks for itself really, although it added a new cargo run feature for the merchants and also emergent rowboats for your crew to find. It goes without saying that adding an entire new zone and biome to the game really had the community hyped. In terms of actual content, however, not much was added. It was still all the same stuff, but with fiery versions. But it was amazing to have a new area to explore and level up in when it first came out. The Fort of the Damned. For PvP players and PvE players alike, this was one of the most ingenious updates to come to the game. Not only was it a player-activated fort, it also has actual mechanics. Unlike the Ashen Lords or the Skeleton Lords, or in fact any other encounter in the game, the combat wasn't just all about hitting a bullet sponge until it died. It had at its disposal actual mechanics, where your crew has to light various colored torches to deal with skeleton waves. I know, pretty lackluster in terms of mechanics, but it's the only time Sea of Thieves has added an actual mechanic to a PvE combat system. Let that sink in. Fort of the Damned to this day is still one of the most exciting encounters that can be seen on the horizon when sailing. Honestly, I could go on for hours talking about some of my most favorite updates this game has had, but I think I've pretty much covered my most favorite. So let's move on to the bad stuff. Season 1. I remember when we were all very hyped about seasons coming, and although Season 1 certainly gave us something to do, it certainly wasn't enough to keep us entertained for 3 months. With a very buggy new merchant mission that still doesn't work 100% to this day, and then in Season 2 with another merchant update, and then the Fort of Fortune that is so incredibly tedious to actually do yourself, it's just better to go and steal it, both of these selling points were quickly forgotten. The Fort of Fortune, for example, I cannot count the amount of times I've seen this thing being despawned because no one can be bothered completing it. Season 1 and 2 were unfortunately not a great example of seasons. Legends of the Sea. Now, this is a funny one. I personally loved going on the hunt for player immortalizations, and also collecting the tattoos that went with them, but the problem with this update wasn't the content, but the community's reaction to this content. Basically, people don't like it when someone else gets a shout out, especially in the game itself. It's a really childish mentality, and it did cause a lot of problems. I really don't understand why people are like this. I mean, seriously, I've been making content for this game for 4.5 years now, both on YouTube and Twitch, and even I don't have a player immortalization in the game, but you don't hear me bitching about it. But yes, unfortunately, what could have been a great update was ruined by people with egos. But hey, it did add the Xbox opt-out server, which was a good shout. Speaking of, let me ask you this question. Are you fed up with your top-of-the-range console? Or your top-of-the-range gaming PC? Are your frames in Minesweeper causing you a headache? Then worry no more, my little chums. The wonderful people over at Apex Gaming PCs are just what you need to put a smile on your face. The perfect place to craft and build your PC for those of us who don't have the foggiest. Look at little Timmy here. He just got his Apex Gaming PC and he's very happy.
I'm very happy.
Use code Falcore at checkout and save yourself some cash. All links are down below.
I killed DeMarco.
The Pirate's Life. Now, alright, calm down. Now, before I start, although the content in this update was amazing, honestly, that really is not the problem with it at all. Unlike the anniversary update, all this update had was 5 tall tales that were easily completed in a weekend session, which really wasn't a great amount of content for 3 months. When doing these tall tales, you were sent to a magical world with huge story arcs and amazing visuals and music, and when you were done, you were just plopped back into the same game world that we've been dealing with for the past 9 months, except with more annoying emergent threats spawning on you left, right, and center. A great update, but with no thoughts put into longevity. Plus, they turned the Silver Blade into an elevator, and I'll never forgive them for that. Ships of Fortune also suffer from a similar problem. Although the emissary system was amazing and still is a great way to level up and earn gold, not much thought was put into the gameplay curve. The main problem being the Reapers faction. What was supposed to be a threat on the seas, with the sole purpose of not finding loot but stealing it, with the way the emissary grade works for Reapers, what ended up happening, apart from a very small percentage of the player base, Reapers will essentially stack loot and run at the first sign of danger, which is the complete opposite intended purpose of the faction and the entire emissary system as a whole. In retrospect, Reapers should have only been able to earn emissary rank by stealing other players' loot and only being able to hand in stolen loot and stolen flags to the Servant of Flame. That way, when you see a decked out, blood-soaked, glowing Reaper ship on the horizon, you would actually have a sense of fear and not just laugh at it. That pretty much covers it from me. Let's hear what your favorite and most hated updates are in the comments below. Wait, who's that?
Huh?
I told you to get out of here!
Sorry!